The WWE had some of the biggest stars in wrestling, yet nevertheless they found a way to bungle their booking. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 megastars WWE stupidly misbooked. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Number 1. Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt holds the distinction of being a megastar the WWE managed to ruin not once, but twice. No, we're not talking about his days as Husky Harris, but his wildly over role as head of the Wyatt family. Bray Wyatt was a breath of fresh air, adding a sense of real menace to the WWE's heel roster as he assembled a powerhouse pack of monsters, including Eric Rowan, Luke Harper, and Braun Strowman in his Manson-like Wyatt family. Despite the fans loving Wyatt's wild promos and methodical ring style, they failed to capitalize on his popularity, booking him erratically. Even a promising collaboration with Matt Hardy fizzled and the WWE was forced to repackage Wyatt. And to the surprise of many, Wyatt's Firefly Funhouse and his abominable alter ego The Fiend were surprise hits. And both gimmicks would have likely failed in the hands of anyone else, but Wyatt found a way to make them work, making The Fiend into an even more chilling character than Bray Wyatt's original incarnation. Once again, the WWE found a way to hurt The Fiend's momentum, having him drop the belt to part-timer wrestler Goldberg, then putting him into a start-stop feud with Randy Orton that ended anticlimactically at WrestleMania 37. Obviously, the end result has seen him be released from the company, probably one of the daftest moves in WWE history. Number 2. Braun Strowman. Now, speaking of the Wyatt family, former Wyatt family member strongman Braun Strowman went from a monster heel to a wrestler struggling to beat wrestlers like Sami Zayn. Wrestling's monster among men is another example of the WWE taking a wrestler and seemingly going out of their way to book him into the ground. Despite debuting in 2015, the former strongman competitor would have to wait until 2018's WrestleMania 34 for his first championship belt, the Raw Tag Team Championship, that he won with 10-year-old partner Nicholas. Feuds with Saturday Night Live performers Colin Jost and Michael Che and Baron Corbin were arguably low points in Strowman's career, but even Strowman's subsequent Intercontinental and Universal Championship wins were inconsequential, as he seemed like a placeholder champion in both cases. Strowman had the size and power Vince McMahon dreams of, but for whatever reason he didn't have Mr. McMahon's confidence, resulting in a wasted stint in the WWE. Now, rumor has it that since WWE already has Big Man Omos, in fact he's much bigger than Braun Strowman, they didn't need Strowman. Number 3. Dean Ambrose. Just as the Shield could do no wrong together, Dean Ambrose could seemingly do nothing right as a single star. While the WWE pushed Reigns and Rollins as megastars, the WWE was inconsistent with Ambrose's push, apparently feeling he didn't have what it took to be a megastar like his peers. While the fans felt differently, as obvious by the reception, the WWE never gave Ambrose much of a chance to succeed. Ambrose himself would later talk of the many ridiculous ideas the WWE writers had to get him over, ideas he bitterly fought against but often had no say whatsoever. Equally ridiculous programs including a WrestleMania match where Brock Lesnar buried him and a feud with Bray Wyatt that had Ambrose lose due to a gimmicked camera monitor, all that needs to be said about his disastrous singles run. Number 4. Finn Balor. One entry was all it took for the WWE to give up on a potential megastar. Although NXT is never any guarantee of success on the main roster, Finn Balor as well as his super over demon character seemed like a surefire sensation once he headed to the main roster. That's exactly how he was booked too, defeating Seth Rollins to become the first ever Universal Champion. Sadly for Balor, he injured his shoulder during the match, leading him to have to vacate the title the next day and take several months off to recuperate. This ended up completely derailing his career as the WWE never chose to book him anywhere near the main event he seemed headed for on the main roster. While Balor wasn't demoted to enhancement talent, he fell short of the fans' expectations who couldn't wait to see him in the main event. As a result, Balor had to go to NXT to get any kind of substantial push. Number 5. The Big Show. While the WWE billed the Big Show as the world's biggest athlete, some WWE fans billed him as the world's biggest jobber due to the incredible number of losses he suffered. While there's a strong case to be made that the Big Show's weight issues made it difficult for them to give him any kind of strong push during his early run in the company, there's no explanation for the way they booked him in the years later. Rather than using him as a monster heel, they used him as a big man to get new stars over, whether it was Alberto Del Rio or Brock Lesnar. Somehow, the WWE failed to see that not only did it have a big man who could work with a number of opponents, it had a funny and charismatic athlete who could work any number of roles. Regrettably, his main role seemed to be counting the lights, and throwing the many face and heel turns that seemed to happen every week, and fans had no reason to get behind a star who should have been a consistent main eventer. Number 6. Mark Henry. Like The Big Show, Mark Henry's early WWE career was full of mistakes and missteps, some of them on the WWE's part, but also on Henry's part, who failed to live up to his potential. While wrestling lore has it that the WWE booked Henry into embarrassing angles such as his romance with geriatric Mae Young, former WWE announcer and Vice President of Talent Relations Jim Ross claims that wasn't the case. Whatever the situation, Henry worked in near obscurity for several years, until he enjoyed a resurgence in 2011, winning the World Heavyweight Championship. The said resurgence ended and he returned to putting over wrestlers. Number 7. Rusev. Every day is Rusev Day. Well, try telling that to the WWE writers who found a way to job the Bulgarian brute in embarrassing programs and stifle any purported push. Rusev's WWE career always seemed to have him coming up short, whether it was his far too brief program with John Cena, his blink and you'll miss it affiliation with the faction The League of Nations, or the promising Rusev Day storyline with Aiden English. While Rusev's personal decisions such as his audacious public proclamation that he was marrying Lana upset WWE officials or cutting his hair without their permission are often mentioned as reasons for his push never materializing, the WWE's failure to truly utilize a world-class star is nothing new but sad nonetheless. Number 8. Roman Reigns. Now, while Roman Reigns is now doing great as a tribal chief, his singles career from 2014 to 2020 epitomized the WWE's failure to get him over or listen to the fans' reaction. The problem with Reigns wasn't that the fans disliked him when he broke out into singles stardom, but the problem was they failed to capitalize on his grassroots popularity, putting Batista over him at the 2014 Rumble and waiting until 2015 to push him. By that time, the fans had already found other favourites, but that didn't stop them from pushing Reigns so strongly, and it created fan backlash. So the more the WWE pushed the big dog, the more fans booed and pushed back. They didn't help Reigns with its usual stop and start booking, particularly as he chased Brock Lesnar for the World Heavyweight Championship and later the Universal Championship. Their stubborn refusal to turn him heel is another example of the promotion ignoring the fans and doing things their way. In a classic case of how even a broken clock is right twice a day, the WWE finally listened to the fans, turning Reigns heel and making one of the best decisions in the last decade. Number 9. Goldberg. If anyone wanted to show the WWE only has one role for former WCW stars, i.e. demeaning their status as true main eventers, the case of Goldberg's run in the WWE from 2003 to 2004 demonstrates this. Goldberg was immediately emasculated upon entering the WWE, with The Rock referring to him as Whisker Biscuits, and Goldust putting his blonde wig on the man who Goldberg would normally have crushed in WCW for just looking at him in the wrong way. As bad as Goldberg's outer ring segments were, they made him look good compared to his terrible booking. They got things off to a bad start by reworking his iconic entrance music, then put Goldberg into lengthy matches, dispelled his image as a babyface who steamrolled over opponents. His quest for Triple H's World Championship made him look particularly weak, as it took several tries for Goldberg to secure the belt from him. As if that wasn't enough, they booked him as a jobber to the stars, but the WWE's failure to book him as anything but a dominant force made him into a shell of his WCW character, something which was probably no accident by the WWE. And number 10, Scott Steiner. And our discussion of WCW main eventers reduced to inconsequential status would be complete without mentioning Big Papa Pump's Scott Steiner. Wrestling's genetic freak was one of several WCW main eventers who preferred collecting big money paychecks for sitting at home rather than working for the WWE for far less money. However, when Steiner's WCW paychecks ended, he took them up on their offer. A big mistake if Steiner thought he was going to get a repeat of his strong run in WCW, where he held the promotion's World Championship and was a solid main eventer. Now, although Steiner received some token World Heavyweight Championship matches against Triple H, he came up short at the 2003 Rumble and at that year's No Way Out pay-per-view. But although Steiner's mobility was limited by the time he came to the WWE, the promotion seemed more concerned with burying him rather than utilizing his name value. Steiner quickly sank down the card following his short program with Triple H, and they released him in 2004. But there you have it, guys, 10 megastars that were stupidly misbooked by the WWE. Who do you think was the worst booked? Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.